In Port Charles, chaos never sleeps, and this week, the city teeters on the brink of emotional collapse and political manipulation. What begins as a seemingly simple celebration spirals into a high-stakes showdown involving desperate mothers, buried betrayals, and a manhunt that could unravel alliances and tear families apart. On Tuesday, July 22, the tangled threads of power, ambition, and revenge begin to tighten, and not everyone will survive the knot that forms. Willow stood in the center of the GH Nurses Hub, radiating the calm joy of a woman on the cusp of transformation. Her wedding had been postponed under vague circumstances, yet she clung to the idea of her union with Drew Cain as if it were a life raft. In a rare moment of emotional vulnerability, she confided in Elizabeth about her dreams for the future, dreams that had very little to do with the man she was marrying and everything to do with the control she thought that marriage would bring. Elizabeth, ever the silent observer of human implosion, simply nodded, unable to shake the feeling that Willow was running headfirst into a disaster disguised as domestic bliss. Unbeknownst to Willow, far from the pastel daydream she was conjuring, the Quartermaine estate simmered with unease. Tracy, sharp as ever, met with Martin Gray for what she assumed would be a routine exchange of strategy. But Martin arrived with unsettling intelligence, and his tone carried the weight of someone who knew too much. As he outlined a development tied to ELQ's recent transactions, Tressa's jaw tightened. Whatever Martin said was enough to make her throw her drink back in disbelief and declare, "That will never happen." But denial rarely stops fate in Port Charles, it only delays the explosion. Elsewhere, Portia Robinson found herself once again trapped between her ethics and her survival. Her conversations with Isaiah Gannon, though casual on the surface, carried the underlying current of warning. Isaiah wasn't just offering support, he was delivering a veiled ultimatum. If she was going to stand up to Drew Cain, it had to be now and it had to be definitive. Drew had been cornering her for weeks, manipulating her medical license, coercing her silence in exchange for peace. But Portia had reached her limit. The next time he pushed, she planned to push back with force. What she didn't expect was that someone else was already preparing to do just that, only not for her sake. Curtis Ashford, who had watched Drew with wary eyes and guarded silence, finally made his move. In a moment laced with regret and fury, Curtis uncovered one of Port Charles's best-kept secrets. Nina Reeves had a brief, but explosive affair with Drew during a time when alliances were crumbling and hearts were most vulnerable. Curtis, fed up with half-truths and personal sacrifices, made the conscious choice to detonate the truth. And the intended recipient? Willow. Whether he did it out of loyalty to Portia, as an act of justice, or to reclaim his own integrity, one thing was clear: the reckoning had begun. The personal tragedies continued to mount as Lucas Jones burst into the PCPD, his face pale and trembling with rage. He had come to report Marco Rios missing, a man Lucas claimed had been forcibly taken. Ada Justine Turner was quick to pick up the scent of corruption and immediately classified the case as a probable kidnapping. Lucas's accusation wasn't vague. He named Sonny Corinthos outright. To Lucas, there was no doubt, the infamous mobster had orchestrated Marco's disappearance as a power play. Chase, under mounting pressure from Turner, launched into the investigation, but even he could feel the strings tightening. This wasn't just a missing persons case. This was war. Meanwhile, Jens Sidwell, a man who moved through the criminal underworld like a ghost cloaked in Armani, emerged from the shadows to make a calculated offer. His tone was calm, yet beneath it was the cold edge of a man who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He reached out with a simple proposition. He would comply with a portion of Sonny's demands, but in exchange, Marco would walk free. It was a devil's bargain. One that only worked if both sides believed they could outmaneuver the other in the aftermath. While deals were being forged in whispered tones, Laura Collins received devastating news that hinted at Marco's disappearance but also suggested something deeper, something more orchestrated. Laura, long a fixture of moral balance in Port Charles, found herself at a crossroads. The situation unfolding had implications beyond a single missing man. It tied into a broader plan, one that threatened to sully her legacy and entangle her in choices she had once sworn she'd never make. That's when Sonny stepped in. Their conversation was private but intense. He stood close, his voice low and charged with unspoken weight. "If you don't do it, I will." Those words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Sonny wasn't asking Laura for a favor, he was offering her a warning. Whatever came next, he would see it through with or without her. The gravity in his tone implied something protective, perhaps even redemptive, but it also hinted at a plan he hadn't yet shared. Whether Laura would take the reins or let Sonny act in her stead was unclear, but one thing was certain: the next step would shake the foundations of the city. Back at the hospital, Willow's future continued to unwind in real time. The people around her whispered truths she hadn't yet heard. The man she was preparing to marry wasn't the hero she believed in, and the woman she called her mother was more entangled in betrayal than she could imagine. The carefully constructed image of family and healing that Willow had fought to maintain was on the verge of collapsing under the weight of secrets. But this wasn't just Willow's story. It was the story of every person drawn into Drew Kane's orbit, willingly or not. It was the story of Portia's stolen autonomy, Curtis's moral reawakening, Nina's catastrophic misjudgment, and Sonny's relentless pursuit of control disguised as protection. It was the story of Laura Collins, who faced the test of leadership under the weight of personal loss and political fragility. And it was, above all, the story of a town that had never truly healed from its old wounds. Port Charles is many things: resilient, secretive, dangerous, but what it can never be is complacent. As Tuesday unravels, each character takes one step closer to exposing or destroying the truth. Some seek justice. Others crave revenge. And a few, like Sidwell, simply want the pieces to fall where they may, knowing that chaos favors the patient. In the days ahead, the dominoes will fall. Willow may discover not only Drew's darkness but her own. Curtis's revelation could become the match that lights the pyre. And Lucas's cry for justice may set into motion a series of moves that even Sunny cannot fully control. The line between love and manipulation, justice and vengeance, grows thinner with every hour. For now, the city waits, suspended in that breathless moment before a storm. But when the first crack of thunder hits, no one will be able to claim they didn't see it coming. Because in Port Charles, the past always finds its way back, and it rarely knocks before it bursts through the door.